Story 1. A man near me has two AC Cobras that he takes out on weekends during the day. They have burbling V8 engines, unmistakable. I don't mind this. It's like seeing a Lancaster bomber make a pass. Around midnight on weekdays, several lowered car speed, going 60 in a 30 zone. It is like watching a moped screech by carrying a banshee. This is unpleasant. Story 2. I used to live next to a mechanic who specialized in making cars louder. He told me most of his customers were going through some kind of life crisis. Honestly, that explained a lot. Story 3. Depends on the scenario. It could be a car being set up for racing. The less exhaust system there is for spent gases to leave the engine, the more power it can produce. It could mean pay attention to me in the same way that huge speakers are used. It could be someone who cannot afford to have their exhaust system replaced or repaired if it is damaged. Story 4. You know how girls say they don't wear makeup for men, but because other women notice? It's like that. They aren't loud to impress women. It's for the other guys who think it sounds cool. Story 5. I must be getting old. There was a time I loved the sound. I even had an unmuffled General Motors Company truck with a 350 engine. Pipes cut off right behind the cab. I thought it sounded glorious. Now I find it truly annoying. I was sitting in a parking lot yesterday with my windows down when a couple of newer Ford Mustangs, poorly equipped with exhaust systems, came through the parking lot popping their motors. Most annoying grating sound. I realized that's what I sounded like when I was a kid. I don't mind a nice sounding, well-done exhaust. That sounds good. This ear-splitting, cracking the air sound is terrible. It belongs on the track, not in civilized areas. Story 6. Because they like it. That is the answer. Many people in this thread are making up answers that make sense to them because they do not like the sound of loud cars. Car enthusiasts do. That is why they do it. Story 7. Mix of performance and I enjoy the sound. My car does have a quiet mode when I want to use it, so it is not obnoxious for my neighbors and I do not start or rev the car at odd hours. Some people take it to the extreme and just like to be loud for no reason, and no one likes those individuals. Story 8. My catalytic converter was stolen when I was in college, so my Geo Metro sounded obnoxiously loud until I could afford to have it replaced. People joked that I had it tuned for racing. Story 9. Lots of people chiming in here have no idea about cars or car culture and are making assumptions. Pretty sad. Story 10. Strictly speaking, the loud and roaring sounds are a performance feature that helps the engine gain power. The sound of a good exhaust system paired with a nice V8 engine is, in my opinion, impressive. Some people spend hours and money working on their cars in the garage and enjoy taking a finished project out for a drive to show it off or test it. It is a hobby like any other. As a car enthusiast myself, I enjoy seeing a well-put-together car and sometimes appreciate a loud exhaust if it is done correctly. I do agree, however, that there is a time and place for it, and casual neighborhood roads are not appropriate. Save that for the track. Story 11. To everybody complaining that the world is not silent, you made the choice to live in a house surrounded by other people. I could not care less how loud somebody's car is because I did not buy a house in the middle of town. My closest neighbor is half a mile away. Story 12. I have a Shelby GT350. It is just loud because it is a high-performance car, and the engine is powerful. It is a good loud, in my opinion, not obnoxiously loud and sounds incredible. However, there is a point where some cars can become unnecessarily loud. Story 13. Real answer from a Subaru driver that is way louder than it should be. I am not fully straight-piped. I still have catalytic converters, but no muffler, unequal length headers for a deeper tone, and no resonators. I have it that way because I love the way it sounds. I love the Subaru rumble with its deeper tone and the way it pops when I downshift. It is never about attracting attention from others. I actually have tints because I do not want people to see me. I love the noise when I catch a downshift properly and quickly. It is fun and pleasant to my ears. Less immaturely and more understandably to others, it is also safer. The number of drivers I see wearing AirPods on their phone or just not paying attention is ridiculous. My car being 3 to 5 times louder than normal gives these distracted drivers another way to detect that I am there and coming. For example, if I had a motorcycle, I would make sure it was as loud as possible at all times. Story 14. Mine doesn't sound quite like thunder, but it is semi-loud. 2016 Mustang GT with aftermarket exhaust. I like to feel it and hear it. You can really experience the power that way. I don't hit it hard at night in the city areas. Story 15. Because 1. It is fun to open the throttle and experience the visceral noise and vibration as indicators of throttle position, revolutions per minute, and more. 2. Generally, performance exhaust systems are louder. 3. It is a nice reminder that you are propelling yourself through space and time using thousands of explosions per minute powered by the decayed remains of your ancestors. Story 16. The guy I know who has one is chasing high performance and maximum acceleration. Wide smooth pipes help with that, so his project car is loud. You can hear him from a mile away. He is careful about when and where he drives it, but he has surely annoyed a few people. I think he is a pretty okay guy. Story 17. I am an older person, so I can give you my perspective from the 1970s. I had a 1972 Ford F-100 that my father gave me when he bought his new work truck. I had a job on a farm that summer and saved all my money. As soon as I could, I bought a Holley 780 double pumper carburetor, some hooker headers, and had glass packs installed on it. When I started it, you could feel the ground shake a bit. It was awesome. It had a deep, throaty growl. Not the sound you hear from today's cars. It was just impressive. Story 18. Grew up on a farm with loud machinery. Used to the sound. Big V8 engines sound pleasant to me and make me happy. I do sometimes worry about being annoying to others, but on the other hand, one life to live, so enjoy. I got cutouts on mine. Keep it closed in the neighborhoods and cracked open in town. Wide open on the track. It's a blast. Jekyll and Hyde, I guess. My nickname for her is White Noise. Also, in our town, no one pays attention while driving. I feel like the loud pipes save lives mentality actually helps. Story 19. As one of the make my car louder enthusiasts, I can safely say it's all about how good it makes us feel. I'm not talking about a straight pipe on a 1.4 Vauxhall Corsa. That's unwise, but I have a free-flow exhaust on my 5-cylinder diesel motorhome, a loud pipe with just the catalytic converter on my Land Rover, and a 4-inch performance exhaust from the turbo back on my 5-cylinder petrol Ford Focus ST. The feeling I get when I hear those engines scream is something therapeutic. My wife has been diagnosed with terminal cancer. We had a meeting the other day where we were told she might only have months, maybe lucky to see Christmas. I gave the car a blast on my way back to work, and it made my problems feel smaller. Like I say, it's car therapy for guys. Story 20. This will probably be very far down in the chain, but I appreciate how the most upvoted comment is an actual explanation with reasonable caveats and nuance rather than just small pages. Story 21. Because it is enjoyable. With that being said, quality of sound must be kept in mind. A low-quality car with a straight-piped exhaust is usually just obnoxious. Story 22. We really need to start downvoting this question. It is the same common karma grab repeated repeatedly. Anyone who actually answers it with an explanation is downvoted into oblivion, and everything else consists of people being mad and speculating about what the owners of loud vehicles are actually thinking. Story 23. There are many negative thoughts here, and rightfully so. This certainly disrupts the peace, among other things. I drive a completely unmodified car, for the record. On the other hand, some people just enjoy it. They spend not only a lot of money, but often a lot of personal time working on their vehicles. It's what makes them smile and why they get up and go to work every day. It is not to annoy others or because they are desperate for attention. It is about themselves instead. Side note, there is certainly an argument that you become unpleasant when you blast your exhaust on public roads for many reasons regardless of intent, and I do not necessarily disagree. Story 24. Oh boy. Another thread where Reddit users who know nothing about cars pretend there is no difference between a straight-piped poor-quality exhaust and a properly installed aftermarket performance exhaust. Story 25. Some people drive lifted trucks and intentionally produce excessive smoke. This behavior stems from a negative mentality, poor upbringing, inflated ego, and unpleasant personality. It is best to laugh at them, mock them, and remove them from your life. They are toxic individuals. Story 26. Personally, when I am in my Mustang with no catalytic converters, I do not race the engine or rev it in town. It is not loud when normally driven. On back roads and highways, I let it sing its song. Why? I like how it sounds. That is really all there is to it. Unfortunately, too many people just like their car being loud no matter what the exhaust sounds like because it gives them attention for a second. Story 27. I like when the car sounds like the devil's popcorn maker between shifts. It really impresses my inner child. Story 28. My car is louder than most but not obnoxiously so, at least in my opinion. I like the drama and noise of an internal combustion engine and a manual transmission. However, I do not want to annoy my neighbors. I just want it to make those beautiful loud noises I love when I am out on a deserted mountain road doing some spirited driving. Story 29. I am all for anyone with a hobby who enjoys their loud car. What bothers me is when you floor it down a residential street where kids play, hitting over 60 miles per hour just to hear your car. Use the highway or freeway for that. Story 30. As an actual car enthusiast, we like the sound. It is silly and makes us giggle like little school children. It is not actually for attention, as many of you may believe, although there are exceptions. When many of us have the money, we tend to choose a butterfly valve exhaust, which allows us to be quiet around the neighborhood. Story 31. I drove a V8 BMW for the past 6 years or so. It was a fast car, but you could not even tell if it was running because it was so quiet. Then I went to look at the Corvette with the Corsa exhaust for sale. When I pressed that button and it cranked up, I laughed like a child. Now I get to live that little bit of childhood happiness every day. Story 32. I used to have a 350 straight piped with cherry bombs. The sound that car made was heaven. The noise it made when I stepped on the throttle and the 750 double pumper cracked wide open still gives me chills when I think about it. At the time, I wasn't really aware of how loud it was. My uncle told me after I blew it up that he could hear it for 15 minutes after I left the house. I guess I never got complaints because I lived in the country. I would never drive a car that loud daily now unless it had valved exhaust. Story 33. We like it. We do not care if you like it. The goal is not to upset others. We just like how it sounds. I am surprised the question is not more about Honda kids, turning into Hyundai kids, revving at night and flying down the street. Story 34. Because it sounds good to me. It is how the car was designed to sound, so why would I restrict that? The sound of a loud V12, burly V8, or a flat 6 flying by puts a smile on my face. There is a difference between loud good and loud obnoxious. Crack and burble tunes are awful and should never be allowed. Someone put countless hours of their life designing something, so why would I want to muffle that sound? It is also a key factor in whether I would own a car or not. Being loud in the middle of the night or day in your neighborhood is a no-go, though. It is the reason why I would prefer an exhaust with an open-close valve system. I can open it on the highway and close it in residential areas. Not everyone is an attention seeker. Story 35. It depends on the car. If it is a Honda, do not bother everyone. If it is a car with a crisp exhaust note and the owner enjoys it, who cares? There is nothing else for you to worry about. Story 36. Because I like it? Free will is a powerful thing. Edit. It is exactly like women who dress up but say it is not for men to gawk. They just enjoy it. Edit. For those of you downvoting, I urge you to learn about American car culture. For some of us, it is our entire livelihood, and we deserve to be happy too. I personally do not go around revving obnoxiously, nor do I start my 347 cubic inch small block V8 at inappropriate hours of the day to annoy my neighbors. But when I am at a red light or in a parking lot and a little child gets a big smile from a loud engine, that is a good thing. Story 37. Genuinely asking, what is the thought process behind making your vehicle loud enough to rattle windows and scare pedestrians? Is it a power issue? A mating call? Do you just dislike peace? Story 38. I'm guessing you're talking about cars that pop like gunshots. Some cars do it naturally because they make power, but some owners make their cars do that. It's hard to explain this on Reddit because it is very anti-car there, and many think anyone driving a fast car or truck is seeking attention. But I'll give it a shot. Your car needs oxygen to mix with fuel to make power. Some cars make a lot more power, a lot more. My weekend car has quadruple the power of my daily car. It is difficult to quiet down an exhaust system that can flow that much. I am annoyed by overly loud cars too, and I typically only drive the fast loud car about 1,000 miles per year. I do not care about attention from others. I actually do not like attention from others, but still enjoy driving a fast car. That is also why I tend to drive my quiet everyday car. Saying that people do it for attention is just a way for those who do not understand to rationalize it in a way that fits their preconceived ideas. It is a common human trait. When it pops or sounds like thunder, like you said, that is all the leftover unburnt fuel exploding in the exhaust. You do not need a fast car. You also do not need a truck. You do not need a luxury car. A mom with one child does not need a massive SUV. Everyone likes to drive what feels right to them, but I guess it is only okay when it is for you and not for others. Story 39. I don't have a car like that, but I do like them. The sound of a rumbling V8 exhaust and the roar it makes when the gas pedal is pushed, in my opinion, sounds awesome. A lot of car enthusiasts love it and do it for themselves. If made louder than stock, there are cars that sound that way off the factory assembly line. It's for themselves and other enthusiasts. Now, if it's excessively loud, it's more likely the byproduct of the car being modified for performance. For example, a drag car is a lot louder than a Mustang GT500 with a cam installed. Story 40. As a car enthusiast, I also dislike cars that are loud just for the sake of being loud. Many people's first modifications are excessively loud exhausts because they believe they will turn heads and be considered cool. To some extent, this is true, but when the noise wakes people up at 2 a.m., it is not acceptable. I have a modified exhaust on my truck that sounds louder than average, but I set limits to avoid being obnoxious. For example, I do not rev the engine in residential areas after 9 p.m., avoid revving aggressively near pedestrians, and strive to be respectful in general. Story 41. Some hobbies are just louder or more noticeable. My hobby is home theater. Why is my subwoofer shaking the walls in my apartment and rattling things? It is not because I want attention from neighbors. It is simply a hobby that I enjoy. I only use it outside of sleeping hours. Story 42. Best interaction on the freeway of my life was when my old Saturn SC2 pulled up next to a random person we flagged down to race. We pulled off after having some fun, and he said, "Man, that sounds awesome. Thanks." My resonator fell off. I guess some people just hear thunder and think, friend. Story 43. I have a classic muscle car, a 1974 Dodge Charger. It is loud with a V8 engine, headers, and glass packs. It is healthy, thirsty, and powerful. I built it for performance and I like the sound. It is not a daily driver. My neighbors might hear it once a month, always on a weekend during daylight hours. When I take it out, people encourage me to make noise and show off. They ask if they can take pictures or sit in it. People often ask if they can buy it from me. It is a fantasy that few people get to realize. Why? Because the first time I saw one as a kid, I fell in love. Because it is fun. Because I can. Story 44. Professional car enthusiast here. My car isn't very loud, but I wouldn't mind an exhaust system for performance reasons. I can explain. Exhaust systems restrict airflow. An open exhaust allows better airflow, resulting in more power and higher speed. Race cars have loud exhaust systems. A regular car like a race car? No, but maybe just a little louder. No one actually wants a race car on the road because it is hard to drive and mostly annoying. That said, some people do not care about performance and install exhausts that make their cars louder than necessary just for attention. They are usually young, immature, or both. Every hobby has those individuals. Finally, Any respectful enthusiast with a loud car will either have an exhaust cutout to reduce noise when needed or drive at lower engine speeds in neighborhoods. Story 45. In this thread, people who hate seeing others enjoy their hobby, so they make up scenarios about them. Let people enjoy their interests and mind your own business. You are no less inconsiderate than the person revving their engine and making loud exhaust noises on a residential road. Story 46. It depends. If it is loud but does not sound good, a lot of the time it is just children without money or taste wanting more volume because it makes them happy. Story 47. If it is a Honda or Toyota modified with many decals and aftermarket trim, it was done intentionally to appear cool and sound more like a racer. If it is an old or beat-up Honda or Toyota, it is likely because someone cut off the catalytic converter to steal it. Story 48. It was an accident. I bought a Jaguar F-Pace Type S, delivered from Philadelphia. The first thing I said was, "This is loud and unexpected." But then you get used to it. And then I was like, let's go. Now every person on the road has to challenge me. So be it. Probably will not repeat, but it was fun while it lasted. Story 49. I always laugh at the people who add that exhaust attachment to their vehicle, and it sounds absolutely ridiculous. If you want a V8 with over 300 horsepower and a cool sound, just get one. Story 50. I'm not that guy, but I am a mechanic. According to a few of my clients, it's for gaining attention. For some, it's for an event like racing. For others, they just want to feel the power on the gas pedal. Story 51. It's naturally loud. My dad's 240Z has a high-compression L28 inline-6, so it is naturally loud. In the case of his Pontiac GTO, it has a big 7-something-liter V8, so it displaces a significant amount of air, and that air has to go somewhere. Neither of these cars are as loud compared to that one V6 Mustang cruising down the road with its tune for loud. Story 52. I hang out with my friend once a week. His neighbor has daughters in their early 20s, and one of their boyfriends has a Mustang 5.0. However, instead of having an aggressive, rumbling exhaust, it sounds like an old jalopy whose rusty muffler fell off. It is just loud noise. Story 53. Our 35 GTR owner here with modifications. The stock car is not very loud due to the turbochargers. However, the engine noise is part of the fun and character of the car. Story 54. I hate cars that are just hacks and remove all the features that keep them quiet. They sound ridiculously loud and annoying. I do appreciate an actual exhaust system that is built and tuned for the car. Story 55. There is a difference between people with stock performance or high-end cars who take them out for weekends or a nice afternoon drive and people with poor-quality cars with no mufflers revving on busy streets for attention and doing 0 to 60 mile-per-hour accelerations in residential areas. I have a Lexus LC 500, and from the factory it is pretty loud, but I do not drive fast, rev my car, or speed down busy streets. I just treated myself to my dream car when I could afford it. Story 56. Performance exhausts are typically larger and do not incorporate a catalytic converter. This significantly increases the sound levels. High-flow catalytic converters are available but can increase the cost of a performance exhaust and slightly reduce flow, decreasing overall performance. When spending a lot of money on parts and a good tune, these small factors can add up. Also, by that point, you likely have stopped caring about having a catalytic converter, which is typically illegal. When I used to race rallycross, my daily driver was my race car. Rallycross is focused on production cars, and many of my friends drove their daily cars as competition vehicles as well. My car had a performance exhaust and many other performance-oriented parts. Switching from an exhaust with a catalytic converter to one without resulted in an approximately 30 wheel horsepower increase after it was retuned. Just to add, I disliked how loud it was, but that was what I accepted to race competitively in my class. Now, many people enjoy the sound or the attention, whatever floats your boat. Typically, car enthusiasts have their own tastes, and I respect every car lover's preference, except for lowered trucks. Story 57. I have an electric exhaust cutout on my car. I can press a switch and it is louder than Hades' butthole leaving Hacienda's Mexican cantina. I can also close it and it has the factory exhaust behind it, so it is pretty quiet. I have an aftermarket turbo, and with the dump pipe or cutout open, it hits full boost about 800 revolutions per minute sooner and makes about 30 horsepower more than with it closed. It makes more power sooner, it was cheaper than a custom exhaust, and I do not have to listen to it on long trips or annoy anyone on my way to work at 5:30 in the morning. I leave it closed in the neighborhood and in town. I open it on the track or occasionally on the highway when I want to outperform large trucks. My other three vehicles all have stock exhaust. Story 58. I have a coworker who tries to leave work 10 or 15 minutes early all the time and then lies to our boss about it. Both of his cars are very loud, so we know exactly when he leaves. Story 59. I like loud cars, but I don't like loud cars flooring it off stop signs and stoplights in the middle of town, right behind our house. Modesty is key, and most people do not have any. Story 60. My brain is coasting along at about 10%, so I assumed the first point in the comment you replied to was saying the same as your comment. I stopped reading the thread after a couple of minutes, so I did not get your full meaning without the bigger context. Thanks, and I hope some people here learn a little and understand the difference. Story 61. I live in a medium-sized Canadian city with lots of country boy culture. The modified trucks that speed down my street at 80 to 90 miles per hour in a 40-mile-per-hour zone daily sound no different to my ears than any other noise I hear every day. Still, I hate it and think it is stupid though. Story 62. Since I was a boy, I have loved anything hot and loud. It is just in my bones. I grew up and became an engine machinist, then a mechanical engineer, and then moved on to marketing for large gas turbine engines. I love my job. I am older now and drive a quiet car, but I still keep the revolutions high and want to get something more powerful in a few years. Not to annoy anyone, of course, or to attract girls, but just to express myself. Story 63. Monkey brain goes haha in the boonies away from people when it can have fun. Otherwise, it is a thunderously obnoxious and frankly embarrassing thing, given where I live. Still, monkey brain likes big angry noise, so monkey brain gets what it likes. An analogy I would make is someone who loves going to music shows, except I can make my own show for the price of getting to a place where I can do so and back, and I own the venue. I really do not like putting on the show for others, though. That is a common misconception and a fair one since my vehicle does not have a quiet mode. Story 64. Nothing is more fun than opening up my car on a back road and hearing the engine sing. If you are driving through residential neighborhoods at 2 a.m. just to be as loud as possible, please stop. It is like other hobbies. Some people love it and some people hate it. Also, some people may have had their catalytic converter stolen and cannot afford to replace it. Story 65. The subjective answer is that it sounds nice. I agree in most cases. To be specific, I'm talking about performance exhaust, not just chopping off a muffler for sound. The reason for a performance exhaust is it allows air to flow out of the engine better. It's like adding an upgrade to make your car faster. Imagine you're taking in deep breaths but exhaling out of a straw. Widening the straw will let you breathe better. Story 66. Because sports cars are fun, but like actual sports cars. Your driver in a 20-year-old Honda with an exhaust is just trashy and loud. Story 67. My truck had a broken exhaust for a while. It was annoyingly loud to drive. Some people around me would take it as a challenge and try to accelerate to make their trucks louder. It was hilarious. Story 68. It makes it more lively and fun when you are driving it. The noise did get old for me. I have gone back to quieter vehicles now. With that, you can be more sneaky. Story 69. There is a specific make and model of car that has won more races than any other, and rarely do you hear a loud one. It is interesting that you never hear a loud Porsche 911 outside of a racetrack. Story 70. My car produces 780 horsepower to the wheels with a supercharger. With that much power, my catalytic converters started melting and breaking apart, so I had to remove them. That said, I rarely drive the car since it is not my daily driver. I also do not drive loudly through neighborhoods. Story 71. Speaking as someone who drives a loud truck, I just like the way it sounds. I don't care for attention and the sound isn't to compensate for anything else. I literally just enjoy the sound of an old big block Chevrolet with a less restrictive muffler than the stock one. Sooner or later, I'm going to install a camshaft and some long tube headers specifically to make it sound cooler. Story 72. I have a 2003 Ford F-250 that I got basically for free. It is loud, but it is a great, reliable truck, and I have always wanted a truck. Story 73. For your safety, it is better that you can hear my presence from a distance so you can mentally prepare yourself for what is coming, lest you be overwhelmed and we both get hurt. It also gives others a chance to prepare themselves. Story 74. I race mine, and it sounds like a muscle car. I also get more horsepower from less restriction. If you are a car enthusiast, it is awesome. If you are not, it can be a little obnoxious. But I built it for myself, not for anyone else. Lots of smiles per mile. Story 75. 5-liter V8 engines tend to make that noise. I also find it very fun and hilarious when it pops, just like annoying people. Story 76. I guess because they like it, but they put what they like above any consideration for people who live around them. And that is not cool. Also, people drive past my house with loud cars, but you can tell they are driving respectfully, keeping the revs as low as possible. However, some drive down a quiet village street at 6,000 revolutions per minute. It is those drivers that I have a problem with. Story 77. Because they are immature children who believe any attention will replace the love their parents never gave them. Story 78. Not enough attention from mother while growing up. Alternatively, experiencing more than one woman laughing at his penis size. Story 79. Because it is a lot of fun. 392 V8 with AWE exhaust. If your car cannot startle people when it starts, it is too quiet. Story 80. Overcompensating. I think it is funny because they usually are not going very fast despite the annoying noise. Story 81. My bikes are a little on the loud side. For perspective on how loud, I have brought it up to my neighbors and they have said that they are not bothered by them. But every once in a while, someone on the street gives me a dirty look. So I do not know. The reason they are the way they are is that straight pipes with baffles are a lot cheaper and easier to set up than something with big mufflers, even including the slip-in baffles I use. I also like to be able to hear the bike over the wind at speed, so I can easily tell where I am in the rev range. Tachometers are a pain, especially on older bikes like mine, and I do not want to be constantly looking down at one. The third reason is because I like the sound. Story 82. I'll take an obnoxiously loud car over an obnoxiously quiet electric vehicle any day. Also, a big engine makes big noise, which equals big fun. It's not that complicated. Story 83. Car enthusiasts are always a little unusual in my opinion. However, this specific type of car enthusiast is definitely seeking attention. Story 84. Mommy did not give them enough attention as a child, so they need to shout constantly to feel better about themselves and seek attention. A sad cry for attention from a troubled little boy. Story 85. It is because it is fun. That is really the whole answer. Source. I owned a loud car. It was fun and I enjoyed it. Some of my family hated it except when they drove it. It was fine because it was my money, and I was the one at risk of getting a ticket for it, which I never did. However, I received 2 warnings in the 5 or 6 years it had no muffler across several states I drove through. Story 86. I believe the car owner and his close group of friends think it sounds cool. It is almost like a mating call to signal to others, I am cool. That group of friends also believes that anyone who does not think it is cool can be disregarded. Story 87. I live in southern Kentucky, and nearly every pickup truck and semi-truck is that way here. I cannot explain why they choose to be that way, but I can say the reason they do not choose to be muffled reasonably is because there is no noise ordinance or law enforcement. Story 88. I have a friend who loves to take his super loud V8 BMW and drive around town, passing various restaurants and cafes while revving his car as loud as possible. I really can't sink myself any further into that chair than I did. I do not know why he does it. This is not a one-time thing, and I have expressed my dislike for it to his amusement. I find it obnoxious and absolutely foolish to put in the effort to make a car that nearly vibrates itself apart at 120 kilometers per hour that loud. If it were an actual sports car, okay. But still, story 89, you are rarely going to get answers from actual people with questions like this. It is nearly always a guy I know, a friend of mine, or a colleague of mine. It is the same with questions like, why did you cheat on your partner? Either the actual people will never want to admit it, or online users respond with typical judgmental comments. The same type of responses occur every time. Story 90. One of my neighbors used to have one and would leave for work at 5 in the morning. I haven't heard it in over a year. I assume the car broke down or he sold it or moved away. Story 91. It depends. For some, it is like a peacock saying, "Hey, look at me." For others, it is as simple as wanting to be the loudest, most annoying person in town. And then there are those who want to hear their engine breathe, have it perform better, and feel a smile when they press the accelerator pedal. Story 92. My uncle restored a muscle car and took me for a ride in it. I hated every second of the noise. Story 93. Some cars sound good, but most people making their cars loud do not understand that a louder car does not necessarily sound better. Removing the muffler on any engine with fewer than 8 cylinders for auditory reasons, rather than for improving exhaust flow efficiency, shows lack of sophistication. Story 94. They need everyone they meet to realize they have inadequate genitalia, and it is too much effort to have that conversation repeatedly. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.